Katie Gibbs, and I'm the American Association of University Women. I'd like to welcome you to the Candidates Forum that we're putting on once again tonight on behalf of the American Association of University Women, the Mendocino Women's Political Coalition, and the Ukiah Daily Journal. Thank you all for coming. We've presented these forums for more than 25 years to help you choose the candidate who will do the best job leading our county. We know you will vote, but please encourage everyone around you to vote too. We're going to start first with an informational discussion of measures D and E from Mr. Hutchison up here. So tonight, our moderator is Marianne Philwatt. She will explain the details about how it works for candidates. And here she is.
Thank you, Katie, and welcome everyone. We're going to devote our first 15 minutes to hearing from Chief Doug Hutchison, who is the fire chief of the Ukiah Valley Fire District, and he is going to explain measures D and E on the countywide measures on the ballot, having to do with extending the transient occupancy tax to private campgrounds with the funds to be distributed to county fire districts. And with that, take it away, Doug.
Good evening, thank you for having me. So as she explained, the county has put forth two measures, D and E, to assist the local fire districts with sustainable funding. One of the things that is very challenging, particularly for the small districts, is to have sustainable funding based on the way taxation works in the state of California. So one of the hopes is although this is not by any means going to really patch all the holes for the fire districts, for many it will be really truly a godsend, the amount of money that we're talking about. So what's proposed and why it was proposed the way it is Measure D would be a general sales tax, essentially like the transient occupancy tax put on hotel and motel rooms now. With the second advisory measure, Measure E, where the public can advise that 100% of the funds collected from that would go to the fire districts in Mendocino County. Currently, the private campgrounds, of which I believe there are 10 within the county, do not pay the transient occupancy tax. So this was identified as an additional revenue source that could be made up without placing additional burdens on those that are already paying the transient occupancy tax. The county estimates that the revenue could approach $1 million, which would be split between all the fire districts within the county, which there's 20 or so. The formula for that basically breaks down that 75% would be evenly distributed. So each fire district would get a check for a certain amount regardless of their size. So, for instance, the Ukiah Valley Fire District, which is one of the larger fire districts in the county, would not receive more than, say, Albion River, who would get the exact same amount that they do. The remaining 25% would be allocated to the County Fire Chiefs Association for them to decide if there was a greater need in a particular area that year. So even though the districts will be able to look at their given amount year after year and be able to budget for that, if they have a greater need for some catastrophic replacement of a piece of equipment or need to upgrade to a new standard, there will be additional funds that the fire chiefs can decide, okay, where do those additional funds go? Where's the greatest need this year? That's basically it in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer any and all questions.
How much in the way of revenue do you expect from Measure D?
As I said, the county's estimates are approximately $1 million per year. So if you divide that by the 20 fire districts, you're looking at roughly $37,000 per year of the equal amount, the 75%. The remaining $250,000, as I said, will be split or put to whatever the greatest need is determined by the Fire Chiefs Association was for that particular year.
And does that association include all the fire chiefs?
Yes.
in the county? Are there any downsides to this that you will see? For the county's goal?
Me personally, no. One of the nice things is that this really does capture a lot of the tourist industry, and I know that particularly the rural districts, particularly on the coast, have a great impact from the tourist industry. Their base population that is there year-round may be very small, but obviously during certain times of the year, we get a lot of influx of people. That creates a great need for training for things like water rescue, cliff rescue, and gives them more opportunities to have to use those skills because of the influx of those out-of-town folks. And this would directly tax some of those people to help pay for the services that they would receive on the coast.
Will the tax apply to both state and federal campgrounds? That's a good question.
I believe it only applies to the private campgrounds.
Do you have any idea how many private campgrounds?
The number I've been told and that has been put out at the Chiefs Association meetings is there's 10 in the county.
And is there any organized opposition to these
Not that I'm aware of.
measures that you're aware of?
The biggest thing is we want to get the information out there because we know people are going to start receiving absentee ballots here very soon. And we don't want to miss the boat on getting information to people who are going to vote early before they really have a chance to consider all the facts.
February 3rd, absentee ballots will go out on February 3rd. Thank you. Do you have anything else to add? Thank you so much for saying just telling us about this. When will it go into effect?
That would depend on when it's fully enacted, but probably within the next year, once they can get the tax roll certified. It should be in effect next fiscal year.
I'm not getting any more questions for Chief Hutchison. So thank you so much. And Maury Roden. Ms. Roden, your statement, please.
Thank you. I love Mendocino County. It's been my home for 28 years. I've raised two smart, hardworking, and kind sons here. I started a grant writing business that's brought over $100 million in funding to Mendocino County for programs ranging from youth violence prevention to homeless and housing services to economic development. I've served 3 terms on Ukiah City Council, including providing leadership and making tough choices to address the impacts of the 2008 financial collapse. We need tested leaders on the Board of Supervisors who have made those tough choices, have a vision for the future, and have the technical skills to get us there. I'm honored to offer our community the experience, knowledge, and abilities that I've gained from my decades of service to be your next 2nd District Supervisor.
Hi everyone, thank you for showing up tonight and the 3 organizations for putting this on. My name is Joel Bako Sonula, although I might adopt Swanula, I like that. My family's roots in this county date back over a century, and I've seen what it's like to struggle in small businesses in this community. I started one myself. After spending a decade as a financial analyst, productivity engineer, program manager for the Ukiah Valley Street Medicine team, and now a property manager, I've seen the struggles of everything in this community. I've touched a little bit of every industry. I'm now the owner of an independent real estate brokerage, and I absolutely love being self-employed and learning new struggles that come with living in this community. I want to assist Mendocino County 2nd District and the county as a whole in achieving forward thinking and result-based accountability. I would like to aid in bringing financial transparency as my #1 thing to the table. I believe that we are in a situation where government transparency and how our dollars are being spent are not benefiting the community. And I believe that if they were spent with a forward-thinking and progressive mindset, that we would be able to achieve much more with the dollars that are coming into our community.
Ms. Milhern?
Thank you. Thank you, everyone that came out tonight and those watching online for being engaged in the democratic process. And thank you to the host organizations. My name is Maureen Mulhern, and you can call me Mo. I'm a born and raised Ukian. I have 2 daughters. The oldest is 21 and a real estate broker, and the little one is a 4th grader at Grace Hudson Language Academy. I am a small business owner. What I enjoy this election is that my signs are placed in every neighborhood across the district and in the yards of folks that identify with 11 different political parties. I want to make sure that everyone has access to ask me questions and give me feedback. I'm available on Facebook and at various community events, and available for appointments in my office if people want to reach out to me. I'm most proud of the work on the City Council the last 5 years, of being accessible, building relationships, and that the challenging projects that lingered for years are now complete. I'm proud to have forged coalitions with diverse groups as a member of the council, and I look forward to continue that work as a member of the Mendocino County Board of Supervisors.
Okay, thank you. First question. Jumping right into the issues. What specifically can the Board of Supervisors do to get the homeless folks off the streets and provide humanitarian assistance to them? If your answer involves spending money, where will it come from? Starting with Ms. Milhern.
Sure, so step 1 is to take law enforcement out of social services. We need one centralized number that citizens and individuals experiencing homelessness can call. We need a team of social services providers, probations, and volunteers to go out and counsel individuals that are setting up camp. Most importantly, they need to have a place to go. There are options like a dorm-like shelter in an old hotel or apartment building with wraparound case management services. There is temporary housing in portable shelters or potential car camping. We need to offer individuals ongoing classes and information so that before they become homeless, we can prevent possible evictions and also provide support to those that are recently housed. We need the ordinances to be consistent throughout the municipalities in our community, and it's imperative that the continuum of care function at a high level in order to receive our fair share of funding allocated.
Thank you. Mr. Swanlund?
So as a program manager of the street medicine team, I got valuable experience with boots on the ground, actually dealing with the large population. The first thing we need to do in this industry is actually have true, real numbers that represent what's happening. We were never the largest per capita homeless in the United States. That number was a falsified number from 2017, where our homeless rate was far overinflated for funding purposes. So right there shows you that we already have no transparency in the industry as to where our money is coming from. We want more, but do we want to solve the problem? I don't see the problem being solved, but I do see more funding coming in. So in order to solve the problem, we have to focus on the people that are almost unsheltered. Excuse me, I don't like the word homeless. The unsheltered that are almost at that point are people that we need to focus on right now, because if we can't stop them from becoming unsheltered, then how do we expect they're getting anybody back into housing? We have such a large population on the fringe of paycheck to paycheck who can barely survive, and we're not even paying any attention to that group of people and how we can support them with the funds that come into this community to avoid the people from becoming homeless. And as for where the funds are going to come from, government money is going to have to solve this solution, and we have to stop spending recklessly.
Ms. Rhodes?
First and foremost, homelessness is a humanitarian issue. Number one risk factor for homelessness is poverty. But it affects everybody. It affects businesses incredibly. It affects the residents. It affects our environment. And it affects tourism. I am working with the homeless continuum of care in my capacity in my work. And I'm helping them develop a countywide strategic plan to address homelessness. The plan isn't complete yet, but it's looking at prioritizing outreach and intervention teams, permanent supportive housing, and also improving the way that the service providers work together themselves so that they can provide services more effectively and efficiently. But I also think that just as important as providing services to people who are already unsheltered currently, that we need to focus also on upstream causes and prevention of homelessness.
Next one is a housing question as well, starting with Mr. Swanlund. A high percentage of District 2 residents are seniors. how would you prioritize funding and services for our seniors? And will you work to maintain existing senior center programs funded throughout the county?
Absolutely. The funding that's there for the seniors has to continue to grow. We have one of the largest populations of people coming up on retirement that we've ever seen. And as for the senior centers, co-op living is going to be the answer to a lot of issues. Not stick them in apartments and let them live out their years, but actual cooperatives where people have things that they can do, activities that happen, and a life that they can continue to live into retirement. To just say that we're going to build housing for them that they can have as their retirement is not enough. We have to make sure that the life they live is one that they enjoy and one that gives them opportunities so that they can continue to live life.
Ms. Bowden?
Yeah, well, seniors, I just read a statistic recently, are at a very high risk of homelessness, the baby boomer generation. So we need, whether it's owner housing or rental housing, we need to have housing that's affordable to everybody in the community. The price of housing is directly related to the lack of availability, so we need to increase the amount of housing that we have here. When I was on the city council, we laid the groundwork for a large stock of the low-income housing that we have now that's gone up in the city in the last few years. And as supervisor, I intend to expand multi-income housing, but focused on entry-level housing for working people. But we need to be able to do that, and we can do that without, not at the expense of our ag lands and open space.
Thank you. So I've been on the city council for 5 years, and you may have noticed the beautiful PEP senior housing project that is on Main Street. The city additionally has a housing trust fund, and we're working hard to create more senior housing behind Rite Aid. It's important that our apartment complexes and multi-dwelling units are near the urban core so that people have access to active transportation and public transportation. My work as the mayor last year, we worked with various senior stakeholders to improve connections and not duplicate services. It is important that we work together as a community to make sure that our community is an age-friendly community.
Thank you. Another housing question. What would you do to address non-mental health related housing in general? This is just the need that's been talked about earlier tonight to build housing. How do we make that happen? And I'll complicate it a little bit by bringing another concept. Again, from the prior discussion is how do we do that and also protect ag land and forest land as required by the general plan?
Well, again, the city of Ukiah ought to be the jurisdiction that builds housing, and housing ought to be located where urban services are. That's an imperative in the era of climate change, and we need to spend less time in our cars. But what county can do, the board of supervisors can do, is set policies that incentivize housing to be developed within the city limits. That has to do with negotiating annexation with the city, developing city-county cooperation. And when I was on the city council, I was a member of the tax sharing committee. We were negotiating a tax sharing agreement, which is a prerequisite to annexations. So when I am on the board of supervisors, I intend to revive the tax sharing committees and begin the annexation process. That's the way that we'll develop housing that's of the sort we need.
Thank you. I'm very proud of the work that I've done on the city council around housing. The city of Ukiah has 143 new units of housing, both subsidized and market rate, in the last 5 years. The city of Ukiah is one out of 12 cities in the entire state of California that is meeting ARENA goals. The county of Mendocino has a ARENA goal of 1,300 units. We need to work collaboratively with each city to make sure that we are centering the affordable housing as near to the urban center as we possibly can. We also really need to think about the variety of types of housing that we need. There are ADUs, there are multi-unit, there are single-family dwellings, and we are such a diverse community, we can't forget that we have different income levels and that there are many people that don't qualify for subsidized housing and don't have an affordable place for them to live.
Mr. Swan?
So in order to answer that question, you first have to understand that the reasons why we have this problem is because lack of investing by our government into affordable housing, zoning policies that have limited multi-building units and communities. We have a lack of protection and support of people who rent, so rent controls and tenant rights, and a minimal support for low-income people who seek to buy to get out of the rental market. And if I can leave you with any impression on housing tonight, I would love to say infill, infill, infill. We do not need to take up our green space. We do not need to take up our ag land. We need to find the dilapidated buildings that are run down all over town. I'm sure all of you see them every day in your drives to work, and we need to make them into cooperative housing. And one of the best ways to do that is by working with nonprofit housing options in the community. They have lots of money, and they're ready to spend it, and they're ready to invest it in the communities and make it a good place for us to live. So why would we not be having them build cooperative housing? And then also capping how much rent and housing costs can rise. California did a great job with 5% increase on that recently. And many myths hide behind the big money that opposes rent controls.
Mulhern, are there tensions that exist between the city of Ukiah and the county? If so, what's the fallout from this seeming mistrust, and what would you do to remedy this?
I announced that I was running for supervisor in January of last year because I was ready for a shift in the leadership style at the County Board of Supervisors. We absolutely need for the city of Ukiah and the County of Mendocino to collaborate and work to serve the community in the best way that we can. I have a track record of building coalitions and compromising so that we can get things done in our community, and I'm happy to bring that to the Board of Supervisors.
Mr. Swan?
I take very seriously the idea of being an elected official who ensures that our county government is financially transparent and actually tells the real picture of what's happening. The Good Persons Club, which has ran this county for decades, is not something I'm looking to gain special interest from. I'm looking to get in there and shake things up and poke the bear a little bit and make them think outside the box, because I don't believe we've been outside the box in Mendocino County for decades when it comes to our government transparency. And if elected, I'll make sure that it's my highest priority to bring transparency to the community, not only in what's happening, but also in the finances.
Ms. Roden?
I think the relationship between the city and the county can be improved. And I would like to build on the solid relationships that I have with many people in county government, as well as the solid relationships I have with people here in the city, and city administration. I have a track record of working to bring people together to solve problems, and I know that if I and the second district supervisor will be able to bring these two jurisdictions together for the good of the people who live and call the Ukiah Valley their home.
Different way of asking a question that was asked to the other candidates about what is your position on, this goes to Mr. Swanla, what is your position on doing the contract with the USDA for wildlife services? At present, residents having named animals on their property have no assistance available like we did in the past.
We need to adopt non-lethal alternatives for wildlife. That doesn't mean we can't continue the same processes. I'd like to see them eventually fade and go toward the non-lethal being the alternative. Population control is very important, so keeping the scientists around population controls that know what they're talking about and understand wildlife very closely is very important. Now, I don't know if anybody's very familiar with some of the alternatives, but some of them are pyrotechnics, propane cannons, laser technology, frightening devices that are visual and auditory. And so, on the other end, it's always nice to say there's alternatives, but some of these don't align with the climate action changes that we're trying to do in this community. So, it's always good to say grass is always greener on the side, but there are people doing it in ways that are not lethal, and we need to be looking toward that. But at the same time, adopting all new policies with some of these other tactics doesn't seem very environmentally friendly.
Ms. Roden?
Well, I absolutely share the values of non-lethal approach to wildlife management. We need a program that addresses the interface of our agricultural-based economy with the wildlife that survives in our county without needlessly killing animals. There's substantial scientific evidence that shows that prevention can work. to control wildlife that's predators that are threatening animals on ranches and so on. I would prefer if I had been on the Board of Supervisors and when they recently discussed this, just offering a one-year contract with the Wildlife Services and then directing staff to come up with an alternative plan so that there would be a transfer to a non-lethal alternative without a further gap in services to ranchers who depend on their services.
Ms. Milburn?
So I believe that there are important opportunities to change the status quo and work towards a more progressive program, and I don't have time for lawsuits. We need to make sure that we are communicating with our local partners. We can't meet everyone's needs all the time, but I believe that there are compromises that can be achieved. There will be a presentation from Sonoma County Animal Rescue to the board in February about ways to remove animals with non-lethal options and how to have a similar program in Mendocino County. I look forward to seeing that presentation and wish that the board had scheduled it before they made their decision to renew the contract with the USDA Wildlife Service. I prefer a non-lethal method, but understand that ranchers and property owners may need to use lethal force by gunshot in an emergency. The lethal predator control methods that the USDA Wildlife Services employs are ineffective and outdated. We need to move into the future and understand the natural ecological system and respect what nature itself would do. For transparency in government funding, I would spend that $170,000 in the following ways. Education to the community and reconstruction of the Mendocino Wildlife Association or an organization that public can coordinate with to assist with, offering assistance to property owners to prioritize a focus on prevention plans, including fencing, night shelters, spot sites, and a compensation program for local ranchers for livestock loss if all reasonable measures were met to protect the livestock, increase spay and neuter programs in Round Valley and other rural areas of the community, and increase the feral pig hunting licenses.
Please define what you think affordable housing means in relation or in context of the kind of housing element.
Well, there are technical definitions of affordable. In a general sense, affordable it means to me what people at any income level, that they have the ability to buy a home or to rent and have a place to live.
Thank you, Ms. Milburn.
So I believe that most of our residents don't qualify for affordable housing, which typically applies to subsidized housing. We have a serious need and a gap for market rate housing for individuals that are working families so that they can afford to live in a nice place for their children to grow up in. The city of Ukiah has worked hard to bring in all types of housing, including market rate for professional level as well as subsidized housing, and I'd like to continue that work as a county board of supervisor.
Mr. Swanla?
Affordable housing is something that you go home to and you're happy to go to, not something that you get pushed into because you're in poverty. And we look at right now affordable housing as just a place to shove people that can't afford middle income housing. And looking at that, it makes me sad that the places that we put these little people in poverty into are not places they call home, they're just a shelter over their head. So in order to start going in the right direction and to get affordable housing to be something that works for everyone in this community, we need to focus on making it a place that the people building it would actually want to live.
Okay, here's a short follow-up question then, going around again. What's the county's greatest need? What level of housing, in your respective opinions, all of you, is the county's greatest need? Is it for what you might call, market rate housing, for professionals and people coming to be in administrative kind of higher paying positions? Is it on the low spectrum? You could say all of it, I guess, but where do we start and what do you see as the greatest need and what to do about it? Let's go with Ms. Mulhern.
Sure, absolutely. Let's see if I can do the circle of life of housing in 30 seconds. So the way that it used to work is that you lived with your parents, and then you moved into an apartment, and then you bought your first small home. And then your family grew, and you bought a larger home, and then you downsized to a smaller home, finally moving into a retirement home. We don't have that mix of housing at this point. So we need absolutely all types of housing so that people that are in subsidized or very low single-family dwellings can move into higher levels, opening that up for people that are in subsidized housing to buy their first home, that then we can use the subsidized housing to get the homeless individuals off the street so that they can have a roof over their head. So we absolutely need every kind of housing in our community.
Mr. Swanilla?
Yeah, I agree. It has to be a good mix, but if I had to key in on one type of housing that we're short in this community, it's middle income housing. It's middle class housing, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, houses that are minimal size, not hard to take care of. To buy a 2-bedroom, 1-bath anywhere in this town, you're spending almost $500,000. And I don't know what's causing that, probably over lending and cause a false supply and demand imbalance. But in order to fix the problem with the housing, you have to do it in a mix that goes in all categories. You can't just take care of low-income housing, middle-income housing, or high-income housing. It has to be built all at the same time. And you can mix low-income housing into middle-income housing developments. You don't have to just have all homes being built. You can mix in condos, townhomes, community living, cooperative apartment living. A lot of people believe apartments are only for renting, but you can create apartment-like complexes that are cooperative living, where everything is shared collaboratively and you get your piece of that housing.
I agree that we need a mix. However, it's about 49% of Mendocino County's population is eligible for Medi-Cal. So clearly, affordable for half the population is, lower entry homes and apartment units. But the problem with price has to do with the availability of housing. It has to do with the stock of housing. So if we create housing of any type, at the high end, the low end, we relieve some of the pressure on the price. So I support market rate housing, middle income, but I think the biggest need is for lower income housing.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Swanilla, the Measure B question, it's popular tonight and it keeps coming up here. Would you support, did you support Measure B? Would you support the county's enforcing Measure B?
I had a lengthy conversation when I was door knocking with a gentleman who works for Mendocino County for MFP, Mendocino Forest Products, and he drilled me on this, and I actually learned something because I opened my ears and I listened. I didn't realize that the amount of herbicides that they were using were so small. Does that make me think that that's a good thing? It was on the upwards of about 2 milligrams per tree. He kind of almost got me going in the direction of supporting it, and then I kind of felt like there was a car salesman trying to sell me on something that I shouldn't believe in. So I immediately went back to my stance and I said, I absolutely want no herbicides used when it comes to tree management, and there has to be an alternative to this, whether it cuts into your profit margins or not. I do believe that there is a middle ground where we need to listen and understand the larger forester, which I believe is one of the number 2 income revenue generators for our community. So we can't just throw them under the bus and just make everything go away for them in a profit margin, obviously, because they'll stop doing business. But we do need to stand with the people on this one. It was a democratic vote that happened, and it needs to be exercised in the way that democracy is exercised. No more hack and squirting or leaving trees for fire prevention.
Ms. Roden?
The voters passed the ordinance, Measure B, or passed the initiative, Measure B, and the Board of Supervisors is obliged to implement it. In the case of Measure B, the process was unreasonably delayed by the State Attorney General. But while I'm interested in hearing from scientists and ecologists, I haven't yet spoken, but it's my plan to find out more about the impacts of hack and squirt. Ultimately, I believe that the county should enforce what the voters express. We just need, I'm not quite finished. That we have to make sure that it's implemented in a way that's fair, productive, and legal.
Ms. Wilmer?
Sure, when our voters take a stand and work to pass a measure, we have to respect that work whether we are for it or not. I don't believe that the County Board of Supervisors stepped forward early enough to mitigate the damage that could be done by leaving dead standing trees. And now there is a pending litigation. There are options that we can work with to remove the trees so that they don't pose a fire risk. And now that there is a potential lawsuit, there's an opportunity for the Board of Supervisors to work with private landowners to make sure that we work as a community to help get the standing trees out of the forest and create a wildland fire management program. We need to support alternatives and make sure that they are created to be as sustainable as possible. I look forward to collaborating on this issue with industry and the community.
Ms. Roden, does Mendocino County have a responsibility to address climate change at the local level, and if so, how?
we absolutely have a responsibility to address climate change at the local level. Here in Mendocino County, we are on the front line of disasters that are climate related. Fire up here in Northern California is our main concern. Preparedness is key. That's why I support the work of the Western Hills Fire Safe Council. That works to educate residents on defensible space, and I'm proud to say that I'm endorsed by the chair of the Western Hills Fire Safe Council, Jean Shin, and other leaders, John and Dylan Rogers, Manu Laurent. When I'm on the Board of Supervisors, I want us to commit to maintaining the fire break up on the Western Hills. But in addition to the catastrophic risk of wildfires, we also have potential catastrophe brought to us by PG&E with the public safety power outages. So we need to protect our most vulnerable citizens during power outages, particularly people that have medical needs and the elderly.
Ms. Moore?
Thank you. So I've been endorsed by the Sierra Club of Mendocino County, and I want to start by telling you the projects that I've worked on as a city council member. We have a recycled water project, and there's a great drone video if you go to cityofukiah.com/projects. We're working on finding funding for solar power for the city. We have replaced half of the street lights with LED lights, so we're about 650 have been replaced, and we have a plan to do 100 per year. The Mixed Waste Organics program was stalled for years and was put into effect the first 6 months I was on the council. I belong to a grassroots group called Climate Action Mendocino. We meet monthly to work on ways to share goals with our community. I work hard to improve and promote active transportation like the bike routes in Ukiah and public transportation. So for those of you that have not ridden the MTA, I have set up an appointment to have a tour, and you can learn how to use the app. So the MTA is moving forward. I have way more to say about the waste stream and what we can do about that, but my time is up.
Mr. Swanwick?
Top priority is to ensure the county pursues environmental stewardship to provide clean air, water, and land. Individuals and businesses need to be encouraged to participate in managing environmental risks and impacts. Seeking new programs to help us transition to clean energy, that's one of the top things we need to do. Stop all attempts to allow offshore drilling. We don't need that in our county or anywhere near us. We have so many natural resources that conservation efforts need to be put into place to protect finite resources, and we have a lot of those in this county as being a large land mass. There isn't enough we can do to offset the larger catastrophic world issue, climate change, but we need to be taking it very seriously. And the newly formed Climate Change Advisory Committee, and I hope that there will be accountability and that the county will have this be the solution to the problem. But whenever funding flows places, it's funny how these organizations just kind of pop up and you never really get any change coming. So I'm hoping that this time around we see change in this committee and they take seriously the effects that need to be done.
Do you have any suggestions for the county, at the county level, and how it lessen the use of plastic water?
Sure, so there is a woman named Heather Guevara from Zero Waste Mindo, and she is mostly staged in Fort Bragg. She actually has funding from the city of Fort Bragg to go through not only their government buildings, but do outreaches to businesses and apartment owners so that they can work as a community to reduce the impact and to teach new skills about reusing. And I'm very proud of the fact that I have not bought a single-use water bottle in a year and a half, and have worked as a city council member to try to bring as many refillable water stations to our parks as possible so that our kids are not using plastic water bottles either.
Mr. Swanwick?
Yes, banning it's not going to do anything. We've seen what bans on things do. They never solve the problem. They just create people to go around it, to figure it out. We do need to stop having a dependency on it. On the bottled water topic, the sales tax revenue is generated from it. I mean, there's no incentive for our local establishment to ban bottled water or to not allow them. We have to force the people that are creating these things to create a different product so that we could actually stop our dependency on bottled water. And I'd be lying if I sat up here and said that I haven't used bottled water in the last X amount of years of my life. I cave every now and then. It happens. I'm thirsty and I'm at a gas station and need a bottle of water. But I do mitigate as much as I can, and voting with your dollar is the best way to change the impact. It's stop buying it, stop needing it, and we will see the bottled water, plastic in general, start to leave our community.
I agree the end of Joel's statement that we just need to quit using it, first of all. Second of all, from the county perspective, the county can, as policymakers, we can direct the county to stop purchasing and using and buying, and be a model and begin that process. We can also advocate to other agencies, school districts around the county, and we can, I want to hopefully have the chance to talk about strategic planning, but if that does occur at the county level, environmental conservation, those sorts of things can be a major policy thrust of the board and direct staff at the county level to implement those policies.
What is your perception of the status and health and viability of the county's employee retirement fund? If you think there are problems, you can address them.
It's a mess. They overpromised and they absolutely are never going to be able to come through with what they said they can unless they start taking out bonds or borrowing against other programs that are going to take away from forward-thinking future generations of having things that they need in order to survive. I think it's time to come to terms with the fact that the people who were given those pensions and plans were lied to, and the people that were fighting to show people that when it was happening need to be brought back to the table, and we need to understand what they were saying at the time when it was happening. Economists and CPAs and people out there who understand finances very well. I'm a financial analyst myself, so having people at the table that actually understand looking at cash flow and how something can be sustainable would be the only way to solve that problem. By putting a bunch of people in the room who are dependent on those, you're not going to solve the problem. You're going to just continue to have the problem get worse.
Ms. Roden? Well, this pension issues have been a problem for public agencies, universities, cities, counties all over the state. It's my understanding, and this is an area that I want to learn more about, but it's my understanding that the current board has done a great job getting a handle on this pension obligation debt, and that we're set. We're set on course. The problem isn't solved, but we're on a steady course.
Ms. Mulhern?
Sure, so in my research of the retirement board, I have learned that they are about 70% funding. The interesting thing is that their advisor just recently announced his resignation. So this could be a very cool opportunity to improve the funds as well as to create a portfolio that is made up of the most sustainable companies that we can find. And I do stand with the employees, and I hope that they continue to receive the retirement benefits that they were promised.
This is similar to a question asked of the other group. According to the Childhood Trauma Action Team of the county's substantiated rate of child abuse for 1,000 children is over 19%. That's nearly 3 times the state average of 7.5%. And this carries a cumulative cost to the county of greater than $87 million as of 2018. How can this be happening, and what will you do about it? If you're on the Board of Supervisors, and please be specific. Ms. Roden?
I've written a lot about this in grant proposals, and it's directly related to poverty. So that's a huge risk factor again. And then I heard some discussion of the earlier candidates about ACEs, which are adverse childhood experiences, and those have been documented to have that many children who experience adverse childhood experiences grow up and have trouble as adults. Like I was saying earlier, we need to have a focus on prevention and the upstream causes of later mental health issues, and so I would like to see us continue what First 5 Mendocino is doing in the 0 to 5 age group, and continue that through the elementary and older grades, providing prevention and supportive services to kids at risk.
So let's be honest about the generations of families we have in Mendocino County that live in poverty. We need strong partnerships and a focus on prevention for parents and caregivers to build protective factors which research shows prevent child abuse and neglect. The Center for the Study of Social Policy enumerates 5 key protective factors that strengthen families. Parental resilience, managing stress and functioning well when faced with challenges, adversity, and trauma. Social connections, positive relationships that provide emotional, informational, instrumental, and spiritual support. Knowledge of parenting and child development, understanding child development and parenting strategies that support physical, cognitive, language, social, and emotional development. Concrete support in times of need. Access to concrete support and services that address a family's needs can help minimize stress caused by the challenges. Social and emotional competency of children. Family and children interactions that help children develop the ability to communicate, clearly recognize and regulate their emotions and establish and maintain relationships. I'm sorry I have to talk so fast. Happy to talk any other time. Long.
Mr. Swanla?
It is absolutely poverty, 100%. When you live in poverty, you have, I believe it's like a 10% chance of getting out of the sociological impacts that you'll be affected by in your life. So figuring out how we can help those lower income populations in our community to have the things that the rest of the people that aren't experiencing poverty have. Talking about sociological impacts, I mean, you've got organizations around here that say they're helping different people that are in poverty, yet them and maybe 2 other people are pocketing 10 to 15% of that money and making $400,000, $300,000 salaries. I mean, what's the justice in that? There isn't any. We have to stop flowing the money into the pockets of people and start putting it into the pockets of the people who actually need it to get themselves out of poverty and to get away from adverse sociological impacts that create you to not be able to thrive.
Can I make one quick thing?
Yes.
It's not exactly a rebuttal, but an add-on to what Mo was saying, that I want to make a plug for the School of Performing Arts and Cultural Education Space, for whom I write many grants, and that they do an excellent job. They provide, resiliency for kids, giving them an environment where they feel safe and can express themselves and gain confidence, to grow and have the best chance as adults.